Department of Law to this Social Sciences Research Seminar Lecture on the Quranic Doctrine of Afterlife. I'm sure that you already know that the speaker is Dr. Martin Lane, and I'm not too sure whether you know about the fact that he is a regular visitor to Pakistan, but it's only on a few occasions that he has agreed to make a public appearance and deliver a lecture. So we are especially privileged this afternoon that he has agreed to speak before us. Our program is in collaboration with the Iqbal Academy, and I would first of all request Dr. Suhail Umar, who is the director of Iqbal Academy, as well as a member of the adjunct faculty lounge, to make a brief introduction of Dr. Martin Lane. Dr. Suhail.
Today. These are the words that are expected to be said when one is given the honor of introducing such a renowned and illustrious man of letters like Sheikh Abu Bakr Sirajuddin, better known as Dr. Martin Lings. But when I utter these words, they take on a special and in a sense unique personal significance, since it is because of his books that I am known in the gates when I sit among the elders of the land. However, it's not the details of his books that I intend to present to you today. These details, along with his brief CV, has already been circulated to the audience, and you can read it at your leisure. Books are on display outside the hall. I would rather say a few words about the insights that inform and the spirit that infuses his works. With this end in view, I have taken as my point of departure a poem that was written 72 years ago. Early in his life, Dr. Martin Lings made a prayer, which is now included in his collected poems. It provides us with a rare insight into his personality and sums up the direction and content of his entire life work. Many have sought, but now I seek, and few have won. Yet not the less I am driven to pray, pause in thy fleeing, while I have breath, and call to me and lead me on into that garden where the muses sing and dance, that I may fill mine ears with sound, mine eyes with seeing, and make for men some deep, enduring utterance. And the deep, enduring utterance he has made indeed, and we take this as the author's avowal of an intention which lies behind not only his poems, but all that he has written on Islam, Sufism, spirituality, or religion. This intention was coupled with another insight. In the West, human intelligence, generally speaking, had come to be left out of religion. It no longer participates in the things of the spirit, and in whatever he wrote, Dr. Martin Lings was acutely conscious of the need to express spiritual truths in such a way as to win back the intelligences of virtually intelligent men and women for the only object that could truly satisfy them, namely divine reality, the object for which the intelligence exists. It is thus that we sense in the books of Dr. Martin Lings the imprint of his own unmistakable, elegant style, a certain flavor, a taste, bespeaking a particular spirit or inspiration. Reading his books, one is struck both by the unshakable certitude that pervades them and by the almost tangible sense of author's own effacement in the truths he so eloquently articulates. His works could be divided into two categories. There are certain works which clearly fall into the category of commentary upon and introduction to the writings of the earlier sages and writers in the perennialist school. Such works as Ancient Beliefs and Modern Superstition, Symbol and Archetype, and the 11th Hour. Then there are books which are the result of the application of the principles of the perennial wisdom to specific delimited fields, marking his own particular affinities and indeed his genius. It is in this category of works that his books have excelled all other comparable works. First and foremost, one must mention his magisterial account of the life of the Prophet, then his revealing book on Shakespeare's plays. His work, The Quranic Art of Calligraphy and Illumination, is also second to none. And we would also include in this category his book on a Sufi saint of the 20th century, arguably the finest biography of a Sufi in the English language. In the words of a reviewer, in reading Dr. Martin Ling's Muhammad, we detect an alchemical effect in his narration and composition which so evenly combines scholarly accuracy with poetic passion. Lings is a scholar poet. Whatever he writes, through his books, one is given a series of particular potent doses of the concentrated essence of the religion. The key for comprehending the Islamic works of our author then as a whole, whether it be the Quran, the Prophet, the Sufi saints, Sufi doctrines, whatever be the subject at hand, is his manner of treating his subject always carries the reader from the realm of the form to the substance, to the essence, from the particular to the universal, from the symbol to the archetype. Dr. Martin Lings prayed for making the deep, enduring utterances in 1932. Centuries ago, Milton, in his Paradise Lost, wrote of a vision which would then be translated into poetry. And Milton's verses are strongly reminiscent of what I quoted from his poem earlier. And I'll finish a quote from Milton. And chiefly thou, O Spirit, that dost prefer, before all temples the upright heart and pure, instruct me, for thou knowest so much, the rather thou celestial light, shine inward and mine through her powers irradiate, there plant eyes, all mist from thence purge and disperse, that I may see and tell of things invisible to mortal sight. So I request Dr. Martin Lings, in the word of Milton, to tell us what he has seen, to enlighten us about the Quranic view, the afterlife. But before he illuminates us on the subject, I would like to inform the audience that 24th of January is the birthday of Dr. Martin Lings. He would be 95 tomorrow. For the inspiring example set by his life and for the spiritual light cast by his works, we can but offer heartfelt gratitude. I wish him many happy returns of the day. May my words be accepted by him as a humble tribute to a long life of unswerving devotion to the sacred. Welcome, Dr. Martin Lings.
The students of Islam, if they are seated, if they find somebody elderly close by, please give space so that those who come here as our guests could be accommodated. It would go like this, that we have something like 40 to 45 minutes of presentation by the speaker, followed by a few questions, only a few questions. Now the questions will not be done verbally. We have a few students around who would let you have a piece of paper if you want to write your questions. And then you let the questions come over here and we decide as to whether he is prepared to answer those questions or not. So now I would request Dr. Martin Lings to kindly deliver his lecture, and would you like to sit here or would you do it from there?
Would I like to sit?
And speak, or would you like to go there? It's up to you.
I think I will try sitting here,
This is perfectly okay. Yeah.
whichever is
This is
best for you. Yes, sir. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يا إخواني السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I prefer to be called not Dr. Martin Lings, but Al-Hajj Abu Bakr Sirajuddin. That I consider to be my name, and it has been my name since 1938, when I first entered Islam. Now, this subject is a very profound one, the Quranic doctrine of the afterlife. And one thing that perhaps needs to be said first is that all the good things of this world, according to the Quran, are a preparation for the next world. There is a hadith Qudsi, that is a hadith where Allah Ta'ala speaks on the tongue of His Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. I was a hidden treasure, and I loved to be known, and so I created the world. And that must be taken, the world must be taken in two senses, the little world of man and the great outer world. And everything comes from God, from the hidden treasure, and goes back to that. And all the good things in this world that we know in life is a preparation for us for the afterlife. The Quran often says that the real things are in the afterlife. And there are two refrains in the Quran that when the Quran speaks of rivers, gardens, trees, fountains, we know that the meaning is that the real gardens are in the next world, in the afterlife. What we have here is a preparation. Another message of the Quran is that this world, this life here below, there's a certain vanity in it. Vanity, frustration, mediocrity, its brevity. In one verse of the Quran, this life is spoken as a pastime and a game. And in the afterlife, there is, of course, there are many paradises. They cannot be counted, each one higher than the other. And but everything will vanish when the hidden treasure decides to reabsorb everything into itself. Another refrain which goes right through the Quran, we hear it again and again. These words أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور. Do not all things go back to God? And what it says about the afterlife includes perfect contentment. Unlike this world, every blessed spirit has all that he or she is capable of desiring. There is an immense hierarchy of paradises. One paradise above the other. The Prophet ﷺ said that the people of paradise will behold the high place that is above them, even as they now behold the bright planet on the eastern or western horizon. But it is possible to make divisions. The Quran makes divisions in the hierarchy. And let us begin with one of the early revelations in the Quran, the Surah Al-Waqi'ah. And this surah mentions three groups of people. That is, two groups of those who are saved, first of all. The third group is those who are not saved. And the two groups of those that are saved are mentioned as the foremost. That is the highest group, the foremost, those who are in front. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم. The foremost are those who are brought near. And the Quran goes on to say that there are many of those in former generations, but few in the later generations. And the Prophet ﷺ said that there were many very excellent people in early generations, but in later generations those are only a few. Then there's a distinction between those on the right and those on the left. Those on the left are damned. Those on the right will be saved. The foremost, about which we were speaking first of all, are described as being brought near to God. And the word used in Arabic is muqarrabun. And you will perhaps know that the distinction made between the angels and archangels like Sayyidina Mikael, Sayyidina Jibreel, and others, they are also called muqarrabun, al-mala'ikat al-muqarrabun, the archangels, those who are near to God. How near is that? It is a way of saying, speaking of union almost, because Allah Ta'ala himself says in the Quran that he is nearer to man than his jugular vein, this vein that runs down the neck, which means, and he says also that you should know that God comes between a man and his own heart. God comes in between a man and his own heart. So those are the highest of the saints in the next world, those who are brought near to God. But those on the right will have everything they wish for. And in between the two, there is a third group of people that we should take note of. They are called the Abrar, the righteous. They are higher than the people on the right, and that is measured by the fact that they are given to drink a drink which is flavored. It is not direct from the two highest fountains of paradise, Tasneem and Kafur, but they drink what is flavored from that fountain. It means that they are people who are following in the steps of the highest saints. And it is always a question of becoming near to God. That is the aspiration of these people. There's another group. The highest saints are called those who are in front, those who are brought near to God. But they are called the slaves of God. Now, we might say, are we not all slaves? And are we not all near to God? Because God comes in between a man and his own heart. But we must realize that there's a question of understanding that. The truth is that, of course, that we are all slaves and that we are all near to God. But it's a question, do we realize that? Of coming to know that, of coming to understand it. That's what has to be done. But the Quran promises that if we avoid the great sins, God, will wipe out our faults and cause you to enter paradise with a noble entry. But purification is necessary. There are 4 categories of those who are saved. First of all, the righteous. Those of the right. That is the lowest of the degrees. Then those who are being purified of their sins, of their faults. The Quran promises, Allah Ta'ala promises in the Quran, that we will take away your sins. But between that and entering paradise, we have to understand there is another group of people. And these are called, in fact, one of the surahs of the Quran is named after these people, named after the heights, Al-Araf. And the people in question are men on the heights. They have been purified of their sins, but they are not yet in paradise. They see paradise and they see hell, and they call out to the people of paradise, Assalamu alaikum, they have not yet entered it, though they are eager to enter. They are not yet ready for paradise. One has to be, first of all, to go through a period of becoming ready. Why is that necessary, we may ask? And we find the same thing in other religions. For example, in Christianity, it was considered that it was a sacrilege to say that though everybody who died and was saved went straight to paradise. The answer to this question is, that is the same in Buddhism, the same in other religions. We can say that Buddhism, which has taken possession of the East, more or less, the Far East, the Quran says, for every people there is a messenger, for every people there is a Rasul. Some of them we have mentioned, others, speaking to the Prophet, some of them we have mentioned, others we have not mentioned. And clearly the Buddha is one of those who are not mentioned, because over 2,000 years ago he founded a religion, a world religion, that is, that everybody can enter who wishes. There are, I say, as you know, there are some world religions and other religions which are just for one people, like Hinduism and Judaism. They are only for one people. But there are three world religions. There is Buddhism in the East, Christianity in the West, and we are a middle people, as the Quran says, between East and West. And we have, because we are being the latest religion, our religion has had less time to degenerate than other religions. But nonetheless, it is sad to think that the people of Islam are following in the tracks of those who went before them. That was also predicted by the Prophet. But the reason why one has to wait in order to enter paradise is because it is a tremendous responsibility to enter paradise. The Quran makes it clear that the great joys of paradise, the greatest joys of paradise, are the people in paradise. And in order to enter paradise, one has to be capable, when one enters, of causing those in paradise to marvel with delight at who is this wonderful spirit that is coming amongst us. One has to be capable of that, and that needs maturity. It needs a period of maturity. We find that in all other religions, expressed in different ways. One has to be a source of wonderment and delight to those who are with us in paradise. Now, another thing to be remembered, the Surah of Rahman promises that for each soul who fears his Lord, there will be two paradises. That is not generally understood, but it is clearly necessary because man's nature is twofold. There is a vertical element and a horizontal element. And the two pairs of paradises are the higher of the two is concerned with our relationship with God Himself. The lower paradise is our relationship with other souls, other blessed spirits. So each soul is promised two paradises. The Quran, the paradises are no doubt numberless, but symbolically speaking, the Quran mentions two pairs of paradises, a higher pair and a lower pair. You know the Prophet ﷺ, I pulled this out by mistake, can you put it back? Offered the choice of staying in this world when he was ill, of staying in this world, or meeting with his Lord and paradise. And he chose the latter. He chose not to live any longer, but to go to meet Allah Ta'ala and to paradise. Now, we come to the question of the people on the left, which are mentioned in the Surah Al-Baqiyah, those who go to hell. And hell seems to need some explanation. The Quranic descriptions of hell are unsurpassably terrible. As in all religions, the Quran doesn't need to learn anything from other religions about hell. Its descriptions of hell are just as bad as in any other religion. But the Quran also insists that a bad deed is only punished with its equivalent. We are not punished for anything more than what we are guilty of. How then is it possible to deserve hell? You may ask this question. Because hell is not for a day or week, but seemingly endless. We will come back later to the question of duration. But are we capable in this life of assessing the gravity of sins, which are states lived year after year? As you know, many people, and more people, alas, in the modern world, are atheists or agnostics. How many people, for example, who are not atheists or agnostics, but they don't pray regularly, they pray sometimes? When the Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is the difference between Iman and Kufr, that is, belief, faith, and disbelief? He said, as-salah, the prayer, the ritual prayer, the 5 daily prayers. That is the difference. That a man who prays regularly is a believer. One who does not pray regularly is a kafir, that is, a disbeliever. Not to pray is subhuman. we are lower than the animals. A person who does not pray is lower than the animals, because man, the Quran says, God says in the Quran, we did not create man except that he should worship us. Animals are not guilty of sin. Animals cannot sin. They follow their instincts. But man has a free will. Man is in the image of God. He has free will, and he can say to his soul, you cannot have that. It is not good for you. And that is the difference between a man who is truly human and an animal. But many of the inhabitants of the world today, many humans, they are subhuman. And they are really below the animals even. The typically modern man is even worse than Quraysh. That is, the people who drove the Prophet ﷺ out of Mecca and tried to kill him many times without success. But they did believe in God, but they didn't believe in the afterlife. They thought that death was the end, but they did believe in God. They had idols, of course, but nowadays people are worse than that. They don't even believe in God, or they have doubts about God. Man's greatest gift from God is the power to conceive God, that is, to have what we might call a sense of the absolute. That is the greatest gift that man has from God, an intelligence which is capable of grasping what is above him, namely, above all, God. But the sin of sins is denying what is above this world, denying the transcendent, giving all one's attention to the world, not as Khalifatullah on earth, not as God's representative on earth, but as a parody of God, a would-be independent tyrant. Modern man, typically modern man, is a would-be independent tyrant bent on unrestrained exploitation of all the resources of the earthly state. That is a tremendous betrayal of trust. And if hell has a touch of the absolute, it is because of this betrayal in relation to the absolute. But hell is not absolute and cannot be eternal. It cannot last forever, because only God is al-Baqi, that is the eternal. Only the hidden treasure said, I am a hidden treasure. The Quran sometimes speaks of hell as being people being in hell forever. But that must not be taken as eternally. And in the Surah Hud, there is a double limitation placed on the everlastingness of hell. It says that the people in hell will remain in hell as long as heaven and earth endure. But then it adds, except as God wishes. Verily God is ever the doer of what he will. And according to a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is obviously a commentary on this passage in Surah Hud, that after the day of judgment, God will call the angels, the prophets, and the believers to intercede for the people of hell. In consequence, many souls will be taken out of hell. And then God will order the angels to release all those in whom there is any good. And many more souls are taken out of hell. And then only those are left who have no good to their credit. Then will God say, the angels, and he asks the angels will no one intercede for these people? There is no good in them. And the angels and the prophets and the believers will not, none of them will intercede. And then God says, I am the most merciful of the merciful. I will intercede. Ana arhamar rahimin. I will intercede. And all the people are taken out of hell. Now, the Surah Hud from which this is taken continues and to speak about those on the right, those who are saved, who are not in hell. And it might be that there is the same limitation. It says they will be in this paradise where they are as long as the heavens and the earth endure. But that doesn't mean that they will, when the heavens and the earth are rolled up like a written scroll, they will have to leave, because it adds, this is a gift, paradise is a gift which shall not be taken away. A gift that shall not be taken away. Now the hadith continues. God will turn to the people of paradise and say, are you content? And they will reply, how should we not be content? How could we not be content with what we have in paradise? And he will say, I will give you better than this. And they will say, what thing, O Lord, could be better? And he will say, I will enfold you in my ridwan. That is difficult to translate, the word ridwan. It means God taking a soul to himself. And that he will never abandon them, and that is mentioned in the surah, the end of the, I think it's the end of the surah Al-Fajr, if I'm not mistaken, and the soul is addressed, O thou soul which art at peace, return unto thy Lord, pleased and pleasing him. Enter thou my paradise. No, enter thou among my slaves. idkhuli fi ibadi, enter my paradise. That is another passage in the Quran tells us that Ridwan is better than paradise. It is to be one with God. And the Quran speaks on the day when we shall roll up the heaven as at the rolling up of a written scroll. So the created paradises are not taken away, but they are replaced by the supreme paradise, which is the hidden treasure itself, from which all creation proceeds and to which it all returns. Walhamdulillahi wahdahu wa bihi nasta'in. That is the end of my talk. I might go back to my seat perhaps and then answer. And keep it up. So, if you'd like to take our bit, please. I'll go back.
Send it across to us.
Is this all right? This is all right. This here. You see, it's got double both and got to be honest. So I can't commit to sign any book, so I'll have to. There are not too many books to sign.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Should I read out?
What is this? Read that to me, because I haven't got my glasses here and I'm not. So read that to me, this question.
Okay, one of the questions is that there are the rights of Allah and the rights of man. If a Muslim is to cause pain to another Muslim, is this act forgivable by God unless the victim himself finds it in his heart to forgive the aggressor? Or will Allah punish the aggressor in this life or the next?
Well, I didn't hear everything. I didn't see it. I haven't got my glasses with me.
Would you like me to repeat?
I don't really understand what that question is. It seems to me I've answered it, but I don't really, I can't, I didn't understand when you read it to me.
Should I do it again?
Yes, read it slowly and again.
There are the rights of Allah
Yeah?
and the rights of man.
Yes.
If a Muslim is to cause pain to another Muslim,
If a Muslim
is to cause pain to another Muslim, to a fellow human being, is this act forgivable by God unless the victim himself finds it in his heart to forgive the aggressor? Or will Allah punish the aggressor in this life or the next? In other words, if you cause harm to somebody else,
Yeah.
is it important that that person who has been harmed should forgive the person? Or is it that Allah Almighty might forgive him, despite the fact that the other person who has been harmed is not going to forgive?
The essential in this question is that the aggressor or the harm doer should repent. Whether the man forgives him or not is almost totally unimportant, because if the man forgives him, and that is a credit to the man who forgives, but it's not a credit to the aggressor. The aggressor himself must repent. That is the answer to the question. And if he repents, God will forgive him, even if the man who is harmed does not forgive him. If the man repents, God will forgive him, but he may punish him.
The next question is, if we are all eventually going to heaven, what motivation do we have to do good deeds now?
We have a tremendous motivation to do good deeds now, because if we would have to go through very terrible experiences after death before we enter paradise. Hell is a reality. It is not something, a manner of speaking. And the purpose of religion, one of the great purposes of religion, is to anticipate the next world in this. That is to avoid having to suffer these terrible things. And even if we are saved, we have to suffer terribly while being purified by God. There is many people have had visions of men in being cleansed of their faults. The Quran speaks of that they will be saved, and we will. The words in Arabic, "Nukaffir anhum sayyatihim," we will take away their faults. But that is a terrible experience, to have one's faults taken away, to be purified of faults. But nonetheless, and we can avoid that in this life. That is what the higher aspects of Islam and all religions, by higher aspects I mean things like Sufism. What Sufism is trying to avoid, to anticipate purification in this life, to avoid having to suffer what the Christians call purgatory.
Before I ask the next question, I would want to know how many questions would you like to answer? Because the number of questions is getting threateningly high. So, how many questions would you like to answer?
It's difficult for me to say, but you must tell me when the time has come enough. And also, I cannot sign. There's a limit to the number of books I can sign. I see several books here.
Okay, so at the moment it's 3:30. Can we go on as much as, let's say, 3:45? 15 minutes more?
Yes,
That's
sir.
fine. Okay, the next question is, where do souls reside after death? What happens to them? Do they have the knowledge of their relatives behind?
What happens after? Do they have knowledge of
Their relatives who have been left behind in this world.
knowledge of what they left behind? You see?
That's what it seems, yeah.
Uh,
Knowledge of the
That
relatives.
must differ very much according to the soul. There must be many different possibilities, and it's not possible to answer this question because there are so many possibilities. It would depend on the person, and you don't need to know. You have to trust in God and pray that all will be for the best. That's all you can do. It's not a question that I can possibly answer, or anyone else on the earth.
The next question, if the eternity of hell is not forever, then logically speaking, what would be the objective of this worldly life?
What would be the objective
Of this worldly life.
of leading a holy life? But it seems when a person is in hell, it seems that it is forever. And it's not just for a week or two or something like that. It seems as if it's forever. A person who puts a question like that has no imagination. That's all I can say.
But if he feels that he cannot be identified. Next question. When you say pray, does it mean Islamic prayer, or does that include prayer in Christianity and other religions of the book as well?
There is a passage in the Quran, it's in the Surah Al-Ma'idah, which says, "For each of you we have given a law and traced out a way, and if God had wished, he would have given you one religion. But he did what he did, so that he might put you to a fair test in what he gave you." And then it goes on to say, "So vie with one another in good deeds. To him, to God, you will be brought back, and he will explain to you the things about which you differ." So things from the differences between religions will be explained to us in the next world. But meantime, we should try to do our best. Each community should try to excel the others. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Seek to vie with each other in good deeds. And that is the answer to the question. There clearly are more than one religion. And God says that it would not have been fair to give men only one religion. And here in this passage from the Quran, God is speaking to the whole world. He's not speaking only to Muslims. That he can do because the Prophet ﷺ is the seal of the prophets. Islam is the last revelation of this cycle of time. But it would not have been fair to give everybody the same religion because each people have different needs. And we see, if we've studied a religion, some of you perhaps study comparative religion at the university, you can see that the religions are very different. But we are promised that we will go back to God and he will tell us, he will explain to us the differences.
This question perhaps is very relevant to the answer that you've just given. What made you convert from Christianity to Islam? Can we convert Christians to Islam now? Or is it half? Or it's now?
Well, that question would take far more than, there's now 10 minutes left of our time, it would take far more than 10 minutes.
You can take longer.
But, yes, but I don't wish to take longer. The answer to that question, I have written in a book which will soon be published, I hope. So you must wait till that book is published. You will find the answers there. But I prayed, the simple answer is that I prayed to God to find a way for me. And he did so. He made it clear to me what I had to do.
The Quran refers frequently to Amal Saleh, to earn salvation. Does prayer alone win entry to paradise?
Does the prayer alone? No, but if you pray, if you say regularly the 5 daily prayers, you will almost certainly fast the month of Ramadan. You will almost certainly, you will certainly say, testify, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. You will pay the zakah. But there are many people who fast Ramadan. They don't pray. They pray and then they pray in Ramadan. They don't pray during the year. I know many people. And they do all sorts of things. And if you say pray regularly the 5 daily prayers, anyone who does that almost certainly will pay the zakah, and they may make the pilgrimage. The pilgrimage, of course, is not obligatory. Those who can, the majority of Muslims don't make the pilgrimage because they can't do it. But that is not obligatory. But the Muslim who prays will almost certainly fulfill the other laws. The Muslim who fasts will pray in Ramadan, but possibly not during the rest of the year. I've met people like that, and people who, in a welfare state, who, like England, the taxes are